Team Building Basics, Episode 50. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Profit with Law. I am your host, Moshe Amsel, and today we're going to be talking about team building. We're going to be talking about retaining staff and having staff that is excited and willing and able to lift you up as the law firm owner and help you in your pursuit of the practice. Before I dive into the content for today, I just want to take a moment and talk to you about our upcoming virtual summit. Registration is not yet open, but the waitlist page is live. You can put in your name and email address, and we'll advise you as soon as registration does open. We're going to be hosting a 5-day virtual conference. Everything is online, so no need to travel. You can attend whichever sessions make sense to you, and it is going to be absolutely spectacular and epic, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to share 30 amazing thought leaders, speakers, influencers in the legal space. These are professionals who have either done what you need to do, and they're going to tell you how, or they help their clients do that. And the lineup is amazing, and I'm really, really excited about this entire event. So head over to lawfirmgrowthsummit.com, lawfirmgrowthsummit.com for more details, and just put in your name and email address, and we'll let you know as soon as registration opens up. That should happen just after Thanksgiving. So just a few more weeks, and I'm really excited about that. And when it does open, you'll actually hear it here on the podcast too. But if you also want to get some more behind-the-scenes stuff, put in your name and email address there, and I'm sharing some things there via email that you'll be apprised of. So let's talk about the problem that I am hearing from many law firm owners when they're coming to me with their frustrations. And the 3 biggest frustrations that I hear are, number 1, I cannot retain staff. I can't keep them. So basically, I hire somebody, they seem like the perfect fit, and then I don't know what happens, but a few months later, a year later, they leave. And often the reason for them leaving is benign. In other words, it's not necessarily related to anything that specifically was happening at the firm, but they don't stick around. So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is that firm owners are under the impression, or they get the feeling, that the employees are there simply to collect a paycheck, and they feel like they need to. There's effort required by the firm owner to get the employees to do their job, and they need constant management, constant oversight, just to make sure that the basic tasks are being done. And it's just overwhelming. It zaps all the energy out of the firm owner and just takes the joy out of owning a firm out of them. So that's the second issue. And the third issue is just not knowing how to deal with communication issues with their staff. When they do something wrong, how do I communicate with them, and how do I make it right? How do I let them know that they're valued, but I still need them to correct the issue? So those are the 3 main problems that I'm hearing, and I'd like to start addressing those in today's episode. We can't cover everything in the 30 to 60 minutes that we're going to be together, but we could start that process. So I want to share with you part of the process that we use here in-house for our own staff, and what we advise our clients to do. And there's a few different things, a few different pieces to the puzzle. So the first thing is take a step back and recognize that when you're bringing somebody on staff, you have two different ways that you can look at them. You can look at an employee as an asset to the firm, something that the firm is going to invest in and is going to use until that use is no longer available, and then cast them aside. Kind of like the way a racehorse owner looks at a racehorse. There's no attachment to the horse itself. The horse is only useful until while it can race. If it breaks its leg, it's no longer useful to the owner. They need to just go and get another horse. So that's one way to look at an employee. And then the second way to look at an employee is an individual who has a untapped potential, and their potential is unlimited. And they can rise to any occasion that they feel compelled to rise to. And it's your job as the owner to help them unlock that and help them be able to fulfill their full potential and rise to their full potential. That's the second way that you can look at an employee. So that's the first thing that I want you to start to think about is, which camp are you in? How do you view that dilemma or that equation? The second thing that I want you to think about is there are three stakeholders in every company, and the owner or the company itself can only have the best interest of one of those stakeholders at heart, because at some point these stakeholders compete against each other, and you have to make a decision about who you're going to side with, right? So the stakeholders are the owners. Okay, now you might be the only owner of the firm, so that might be an easy one, but often there are investors or partners of the firm, and all of the decisions that get made need to potentially have the interest of those shareholders in mind. The second are the customers. If you've ever heard the mantra, the customer is always right, that comes from the view that the customer is the number one stakeholder in the equation, and therefore any decision that has potential conflict with the customer wins. And then the third stakeholder is the employee. And the employee, although not an owner, not a customer, is very important, because the employee is going to be the face of your organization. The employee is going to be the one that gets the job done. And therefore, the needs of the employee cannot be diminished and needs to be thought about. So this is quite the dilemma, right? Which one is going to win if you had them pitted against each other? I'll give you a basic example. You have a customer that tells you that your employee is not doing their job to service them, and they're irate, and they get on the phone with your employee, and they basically tear them a new one, right? And your employee comes to you and says this is the interaction that they had with your customer, and they're beside themselves, obviously. You have a choice, right? Do you side with your employee? Do you stick up for your employee and basically tell your customer, look, I don't deal with people who are going to treat my employees this way, and either we change the way that we behave, or you can go find yourself another law firm? Or are you going to turn around and say, the customer is always right, and therefore I'm either going to reassign this case to somebody else, or I'm going to tell this employee to take a hike because they are not living up to my customer's standards, right? Now, when I put it that way, it might be easy. It might be black and white for you as to which direction you go, but there are many decisions that are more subtle than that, but are always pitting this dilemma against each other. And I want to offer this point of view. And this point of view is as follows. If you treat your employee as the number one stakeholder, ultimately your customers and your shareholders will reap the benefits. In other words, by making the employee the most important stakeholder of the company, the success of the company will skyrocket. You will attract the customer base that is compatible with your employees, and ultimately the shareholders will reap the rewards, reap the benefits. I've come into contact with many companies and many types and styles of running a company. And I've worked for many companies and I've worked for many styles of company. And I can tell you through my own personal experience and my own exposure that there is absolutely nothing like dealing with a company that puts their employees first. There's nothing like having an experience with employees who are treated well and therefore are treating their customers well. And therefore, your experience with that company is so good that you don't want to do business with anybody else. And you want to sing their praises. You want to tell everybody about it. So I am going to enter this conversation with the assumption that you can start to see that as the way of being. And I was going to throw a book at you, a recommended read, to try to show you how amazing this can be. But the book that came to mind actually is not necessarily talking about specifically the employees. So I'm going to think about that, and perhaps on the show notes page, there'll be a reference to a book that you can read that really brings this to light. So if we go into this conversation of how to deal with your team and the team building conversation with the understanding that the employee is the most important stakeholder, and therefore we really need to think about how are we going to put the employee first. Now, I don't mean that your employee needs to be treated like royalty and you need to basically give them the farm. That's not what I'm saying. If we go back to the first option that I threw at you, which is how do you treat your employees? Are they a racehorse or are they a person with unlimited potential? Now, when you look at it in the light of the employee as the most important stakeholder, you can begin to tackle the equation from how do I unlock the unlimited potential of each of my employees in order to allow them to contribute to the company in a way that will enhance the customer experience and allow the job to get done and give them the motivation and the willingness to do all of that on their own without any constant oversight and constant criticism and guidance and all of that. So this is the place that we want to approach this conversation from. And once you're in this place, now you can start to understand the pieces that I'm going to share with you. So the first thing is to create a mission statement for your firm. Now, I could do a whole episode on the mission statement, but the importance of the mission statement is that when you are going to bring on employees, or if you already have employees, getting them on board with the mission statement is absolutely crucial, because they need to understand that there's a greater good for the work that they're doing. And they need to understand what is motivating you as the owner and what is motivating the firm. So, for example, my mission statement here is to empower all people with wealth creation so that this and future generations can lead a better life. And if you go back into the podcast archives for the Profit with Law podcast, there is a previous episode, and I don't have the episode number in front of me, where I talk about where that came from. And it's because of my own personal experience with receiving kindness in the form of financial assistance from my grandfather. And that is what's driving me to help other people be able to do the same thing, to help people set themselves up for generational wealth. How I got involved with law firm owners is a whole nother story, but the key point here and the takeaway is that this is what's driving me, and therefore it is going to shape the future of my company. The decisions that we make are going to be made within the guidelines of our mission statement. The customers that we deal with are going to be within the guidelines of our mission statement. Our marketing message is going to be within the guidelines of our mission statement. So in other words, we're going to be doing everything that we do strictly to accomplish that mission. Now, if I bring on an employee who does not believe in generational wealth, if I bring in an employee who believes that there's wealth inequality and people shouldn't be allowed to amass large amounts of wealth, that you should spend everything in your lifetime because there's no life after you're done, after you die, somebody like that would never be able to carry on that mission for us. Somebody like that would get burnt out in their job because they would not understand why they're doing what they're doing, or they would be resentful about the work that they're doing. So the very first thing is to identify what is the mission that we are after, what is driving us, what is basically the DNA of the firm, so that we can have the right people on board who can get behind the mission statement. Now, they don't have to be passionate about it the way that you are. They don't have to have their own story of why this is important to them. But they do have to fundamentally be able to align with that mission statement and believe in it and carry the torch for it. So that's the first step that I have. And I actually have three. So there's 3 steps. And the first is the mission statement. The second step is the core values. Now, there's a core value exercise. I can link to it in the show notes, where basically you go through and you identify what your top 5 core values are. Now, a core value is essentially something that is really important and really integral to you. So, for example, my number 1 core value is family. And because my number 1 core value is family, family always trumps business, always trumps basically everything else that I do, because family is most important to me. That's what drives me. That's what motivates me. And it's embedded in a lot of what I do. Like the podcast that I put out here, I'm constantly talking about my experiences as a father, as somebody who's trying to be a good example for his kids, my past history with being a single dad when I was divorced. All of those experiences and how I put family first is what shaped who I am today. And it's what's driving me in the way that I set up my business currently, because I decided when I established the business, when I started, that I was not going to sacrifice time with my kids in order to build the business. And therefore, my work day ends up being a very contracted day. And I don't know if I shared this on a previous episode. I think I have, but we're going to touch on time management over and over again. My work day is basically from 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. or 10:30 a.m. to 4:30. I basically have a 6-hour work day. Now, I do occasionally do some work at night, sometimes more than occasionally, but it's after the kids are sleeping. It's after my wife is sleeping. So like 10 p.m. at night, I might put in some time. As a matter of fact, I'm recording this podcast episode and it's midnight. But sometimes I do that in order to honor my number 1 core value of family, so that I'm not cutting into family dinner time. So I'm not cutting into my quality time with my kids when I put them to bed, when I bathe them, and things like that. So that's just an example of a core value, but you have to do your own exercise, your own core value exercise. Now, you want to make sure that when you hire an employee, that their top 5 core values and your top 5 core values have something in common. Now, there should be at least 2 core values in common, preferably 3. So 3 out of your 5 and 3 out of their 5 should be the same or similar core values. In other words, they might not have chosen the same wording. So yours might be to love fully, and they might have one that is to have meaningful relationships. Those are really, identical or similar core values, I would count those as being the same. So the core values is the other part of the DNA of your firm. Your firm has the mission statement, that's what drives it, and the core values it's like the blood that's coursing through the veins of your firm. And you have to have the same blood type. You can't mix different blood types and expect the person to survive. You can't have somebody with completely different core values work at a firm that has core values set A and they have core values set B and expect the two to match. What's going to end up happening is that the person that you hired is going to make decisions based on their core values every day in the way that they do their job. And those decisions are not going to be aligned with the decisions that you would want made for your firm because it's not aligned with your core values. And those things might be very benign at the beginning, but it'll all come to a head at some point. So it's extremely important that you have alignment with the mission statement and alignment with the core values. And then the last thing that we do is we do the Kolbe assessment. Now, Kolbe, Kolbe, the Kolbe assessment dates back many, many years. We can do an entire episode on it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to try to get somebody from the Kolbe team onto the podcast here. I think that would be great to get them as a guest. So I'm going to try to do that for you. But basically, the Kolbe assessment assesses the way that they go about making decisions, and it basically rates them in 4 different areas. And when you have a position open, you can basically have the manager, the direct report of the person being hired, take a Kolbe assessment for that position. And then the candidate takes the Kolbe assessment and the tool matches the two. And if you get within a certain range, then they're compatible. Outside of the range, they're incompatible. So the core values and the mission statement tests are tests on whether the person is compatible with the DNA of the firm. The Kolbe assessment tests whether the person is compatible with the position that is being offered at the firm. So even though you have somebody who might resonate with your mission statement and might be aligned with your core values, if they are not the right person for the job being hired, then you're setting yourself and them up for failure. And although they might look like a perfect candidate for you because they check those other boxes, so therefore you like them, they resonate well with you and you resonate well with them, ultimately, if the ability to operate within that job function is not there, then they're going to fail. They're going to flounder, and you're going to wonder how you messed up. So those are the 3 main things that we do here to vet a candidate, to make sure that they're aligned with the company and that they're going to be a good hire for the position that we're hiring for. Now, how does this all translate into the retention of the employee and the employee being empowered and wanting to do things for you? Now, obviously, there's a lot more that has to happen besides for these 3 things, but this is the fundamentals. This is the building blocks that is going to end up resulting in success down the road. You see, when somebody is working in their position with a mission statement they don't resonate with, or core values are not aligned with, or being in the wrong seat in the company, then they might do well initially. In other words, when somebody starts a new job, they're excited about the possibility of the new job, and they'll hit the ground running. If they're a decent, A-player person, they'll hit the ground running and do well, but they're going to run out of steam at some point because it wears on them, and it's hard to keep up the same face, the same game face every day when in your heart you don't feel the reward that you should for a job that you love and a job that that you feel accomplished with the work that you did. You see, if you're working for something that you don't resonate with, if you're working for something that you don't agree with, then you're just working for a paycheck. And then if somebody offers you a different paycheck or a change of pace or something that might be more aligned with your soul, then you're going to go and take that. And that's why retention becomes such an issue when there's lack of alignment in these areas, because the person is happy to leave for some other opportunity where the grass is greener. But on the other hand, if they're aligned with your mission statement and the core values, and they feel like they're in the right tribe, they feel like they're in the right place, then money is not going to draw them away. A position with a better title is not going to draw them away because they find their job to be so fulfilling that they're excited to go to work every day, and they don't call it work because it lights them up and it fulfills them, and therefore they're enjoying their time there. Whatever you do for fun, if you go shoot paintballs or you sit on the beach and lay in the sun, or you like to sit on the couch or read a book, that's what their job is like. When all of these things are aligned, their job feels to them like they're relaxing on the beach, reading a book. Now, obviously, there's stresses in every position, and there's always going to be times where they don't feel like they're completely aligned, and that's going to happen. But by and large, if all of these boxes were checked, that's how they're going to feel generally. Now, there's a lot more that could be done, that needs to be done, that we can talk about in future episodes, like training, compensation, motivation, different things that you can do to motivate people, things that you can do in-house to train and to up-level their skills and make them feel like you're investing in them and that they're important, and also just empowering them to make decisions in areas where you've become comfortable to allow them to do so. So there's a lot more that could and should be done. But for the purposes of this episode, I wanted to lay the foundation with the main points. And those, again, are the mission statement, the core values, and the Kobe assessment. So I hope that this was helpful for you. And if you want more information like this, we have an entire track in our upcoming Law Firm Growth Summit. And that track is the Leadership and Team Development track. And you're going to have stellar content like this taught by industry leaders who their entire job or their entire career is based on building cohesive teams and teams that are going to do the work for you and pull you forward. And you're absolutely going to love it. So just go to lawfirmgrowthsummit.com. Check out the speakers, the session titles, what you're going to learn. Guaranteed there's something there that you would enjoy attending and learning from. And the best news is it's absolutely free. It is going to be free to attend, so there's no reason not to head over to lawfirmgrowthsummit.com, put in your name and email address, get on the wait list. We'll let you know when registration is open. And thank you so much for joining me today. Until next time, just stay in the game. Just keep doing it, keep working at it, and just keep taking one step, putting it in front of the next. And over time, you will create freedom for yourself, freedom for your family, and a very profitable law firm to boot. So take care. Thank you for tuning into the Profit with Law podcast. Your feedback is extremely valuable to us, as well as helping us reach more people with this valuable content. Please leave us a rating and review in your favorite podcast directory. Join us again next time when we are back with even more strategies to profit with law.